Greetings, everyone. We are continuing from where we ended up the last time. The last video that was posted, it was Gladys Aylward story in China part 1, and we are continuing. We are now in part 2 of Gladys Aylward story in China. From the first video, we ended up where Mrs. Lawson died and Gladys, it's all by herself and lonely, thinking of moving. And let's hear from her what is that came into her thought when he was thinking of moving.
I believed that because I was a young and single girl and alone, I should move. Girls didn't live alone anywhere in those days, and certainly not in the middle of China. China, anyway, has been a land of great convention. Women didn't go out alone, however old. They were always accompanied by some male servant, male member of the family, and if they hadn't got that, then they didn't go out. And so the consequence was I couldn't go out. I found that I was bound to the courtyard, simply because I had no chaperone and no one to accompany me. And I longed to know the women. I longed to go into the village. And I wanted to see outside. I was young. I was happy. I wanted to be free. And now I was bound into one small courtyard. And every night that courtyard was filled with animals and men. Well, I didn't know quite what to do about this. I decided that I would have to move. Where? Well, I didn't know. I didn't know anybody else. But I suppose God would tell me where to go. And then, two separate thoughts came into my mind. The first was that, did God put a person for 1 year in a particular place, pour blessings upon them, and then, because it was uncomfortable, and yet knowing that they were the only real Christian there, expect them to move? Well, I didn't think so. God was a God of love. And the second thought was that I knew the only bit of language I had learned while I was in this place was only understood just there. So that if I moved, I would have to start learning an entirely new Chinese, in that I wouldn't understand anybody outside and they wouldn't understand me. I couldn't see it. No, I just couldn't. God doesn't do things like that. God is a God of common sense as well as love.
Gladys decided to stay in China and continue with her missionary work, even though she didn't know how she's going to survive. And God in his mercy showed up. Gladys said that the Mandarin of the local government where she was staying wanted to see her, but Gladys didn't go because she never thought of a high person like a Mandarin who would want to come and see her. And eventually the Mandarin went himself to go and see Gladys. Okay, let us hear how it went.
I was the only woman with unbound feet. When the little girl is from 2 to 4 years old and she could properly balance on those baby feet and walk those baby steps, her feet were bound up. By the time she was from 11 to 14, her feet were finished. They were crippled for life.
The Mandarin said to Gladys, the binding of feet of young children is now illegal. But the people in China are still doing it. So he was basically asking Gladys to come and educate people about this. Let's hear when Gladys is telling it better.
We stood on each side of the courtyard, getting no nearer to each other, and refusing almost to listen to each other. I wished him anywhere. Into my heart was the thought that I had gone to China for Jesus Christ, and I didn't want to be mixed up with governments and seats and politics and all these sort of things. I wasn't interested. I was interested in souls for the Lord of glory. But you know, I couldn't get rid of this man. He just stayed on and on and on. It seemed as if away in the distance somewhere there was a little voice. It sounded just like my brother. It wasn't. He was still here in England, and I was in the middle of China, but the very words that he had flung across the kitchen at me all those years before. If you really believe somebody ought to be going, why don't you go yourself? Oh. Then, but feet are nothing to do with me. Do you really believe they should bind their feet? Well, no. Then why don't you do something about it? Oh. And I suddenly went and accepted the job. Something I had never dreamed or thought of, or would have thought of in a million years. I became an employee of the Chinese national government, the official office. I didn't get the job because I spoke good Chinese, which I didn't, or because I knew how to climb mountains, which again I didn't, or that I knew anything about the people of those mountains, which of course I didn't. But simply because of the size of my feet. You see, friend, that's what you have to put all of yourself in. God at that moment didn't need my hands, but he needed my feet.
During those days in China, people were selling children, and one day someone approached Gladys to sell her bundle of joy. And Gladys said to the woman, I don't have money. I only have 9 pence. And that woman said, it's fine, you can have her with 9 pence. And she gave the woman 9 pence, and the woman gave her a little girl. And Gladys named that little girl 9 pence. She called her 9 pence. It was the name of the little girl as she was raising her now. Let's hear when Gladys explained how she received her.
I never dreamed that I was buying my first daughter, a little girl who was going to come into my life and mean so much. From her there came, one by one, the others, all in different ways, all under different circumstances, all so different in their temperaments and characteristics. But they came. And I praise God for them. He kept us, He fed us, He clothed us. I said, oh Lord, I don't think I can bear any more. I believe 40 are a good round number for one woman, and please don't send any more. But you know, God doesn't always answer your prayer as you expect. That was the year the war began. And down being pushed in front of the ever-advancing Japanese enemy came hundreds and thousands of lonely, pathetic refugees. And when they had passed through our little place, there were always a few children left behind. So the family grew and grew until there were over 80.
And one day there was a war in China. It was an invasion, where the Japanese invaded China. And during that invasion, many people in China were killed and Gladys was injured. And again, Gladys became of great help by organizing people to help each other. And the Mandarin was very happy with what Gladys has done. Due to that invasion that happened, so many people died in China and more children were left as orphans. And Gladys took them under her care. After the Japanese invasion ceased and the area became quiet, Gladys continued with her work as a government official by visiting people in the village. And one day she took the road where the enemy was hiding. the enemy were the people, the Japanese who were invading China. So they had a place somewhere where they were hiding, and ladies used that route to go and preach the gospel and do her work, government work of teaching people about how they should stop the binding children's feet. And she was explaining to them, because God, every person has been created by God, and they should be let free to grow. Every organ of every person has to grow the way God has created that person. So it was a very important task that she was doing. So as she was traveling alone, she saw those people, and they saw him, and they thought that she was spying on them. And because of that, they started plotting to kill her. And that's when ladies arranged to move with the children to one of the villages in the mountains. However, before the ladies moved with the children, there was a meeting with the Mandarin. Mandarin was having a meeting with the council, and he invited ladies to come and join the meeting. And during that meeting, Gladys was honored by Mandarin for her outstanding work that she has done in China. He honored Gladys before council and everyone. And then that's the time when Gladys also, she bid everyone goodbye as she was preparing to relocate to another village with the children that she was staying with. And around that time, she was staying with more than 100 children, because of the invasion that took place. There were so many people that she had to take and stay with them. So the ladies then moved with over 100 children to the mountainous village, away from the invading nation. It was very difficult journey as she was the only adult with few teenagers. It was very difficult because they didn't know when they will meet enemies. They were very tired and hungry, but despite everything, they endured. As they were traveling along, they thought they would get help from nearby villages, but to their surprises, most villages were deserted. They came to a point where they had to cross the Yellow River. It was a wide river, and they didn't know what to do. So they sit down there at the shore, and one of the older girl said, she is our Moses, and this is the Red Sea. And lady said to her, I am not Moses, and this is not the Red Sea. And she said to her, but God is the same God. And ladies replied, yes, you are right. He is the same God. He saved the Israelites, and he can save us too. And they prayed. So her faith was strengthened by this young girl who was reminding her of the goodness of God. Hallelujah. And while they were there, came soldiers on a boat, very friendly soldiers. The soldiers organized boats to help them cross to the other side. Wow. Wow, indeed our God is the same God. As he helped Moses and the Israelites to cross the Red Sea, so he helped ladies and the children to cross the Yellow River. Wow, this is really strengthening my faith indeed. It's strengthening my faith. After a long journey of about 27 days, they arrived at the village called Xi'an, and to their disappointment, they couldn't open the gates for them. They said to them, the village is full of refugees. They won't be able to accommodate them. And they journeyed another day to an orphanage in the nearby town of Fufeng. Only a few hours she arrived at Fufeng, the ladies collapsed from exhaustion. It was then that she was taken to the hospital because of typhoid fever. She recovered slowly in a hospital in Xi'an under the care of 2 English missionaries. And Gladys continued with her missionary work in Xi'an, and while she was working, one day she met a reporter from England who asked if she had ever heard of a woman who came to China as a missionary. And he said, "I think her name is Aylward." And Gladys looked at her and said, am she? The reporter helped Gladys raise funds to go back home, and finally Gladys returned back to London to her parent, and her parent waited for her at the train station. They were very, very happy to be reunited with their daughter again.
Friend, I have not done what I wanted to. I have not eaten what I wanted, or worn what I would have chosen. I have not lived in a house that I would have ever looked at twice. I longed as a husband and baby, security and love, and he didn't give it. He left me alone for 17 years with one book, a Chinese Bible. That's how I know it, and no other. I don't know anything about your latest novels, pictures, theatres. I live in a rather out-of-dated world. And I suppose you say, well, it's awful miserable, isn't it? Friend, I've been one of the happiest women that have ever stepped this earth. Because that's what God promised. The heavens opening and the blessings tumbling up.